Hi, and welcome to another episode of Synergy of the Rose. I'm Claire Attio,
Hi everyone, this is Silvia Yajera.
and this week we're going to get stuck into the topic of gossip and the vibration, the low vibration that it actually brings.
Hmm.
And it is, I defy anybody to say they've not gossiped because it is within the human psyche. It is so prevalent in our society globally that
Yeah,
I defy anybody to say they don't gossip. The the challenge is for us to learn to break those programs because they are programs, because it's been going on for so long in humanity's history. It's a program. It's in us. We hear it as children. We we replicate it as children, and we grow up into adults and doing that. And a big part of my journey has been to really try and break that. And I'm going to hold my hand up. I'm not perfect. I can sometimes find myself starting a conversation, and within that conversation I can bring in an example which is possibly not even my example. It belongs to somebody else. But in that moment, I'm inadvertently gossiping because I'm telling somebody else's story.
yeah. But it's like you said, it's really hard. I mean, you have to actively be aware that you're constantly stopping yourself from doing it because it's so ingrained in us that it just starts like, oh, did you hear? Oh, did you see? Oh, what happened? Even something that's innocent, like, oh, at work today this happened because that's still gossiping. You're still bringing that vibration down. Um, and while some people's like, well, it's so good and it's fun and there's nothing wrong with it or anything like that. Because I've heard that before. It's like, oh, but it's so juicy to gossip. I've heard that so many times. Like, oh, but it's fun. What else can we talk about?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, you know, we have this thing that I always say. It's like, if you have to sit down with someone about gossiping, then there's really nothing else going on in your lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because average people or low people to gossip, and then you know smart people talk about their days and activities, and intelligent people talk about their plans and their futures and what they're going to do. So I always believe that. But every time I talk to someone, they always start off by telling me about somebody else, and I think they can see it in my face, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And then I immediately change the conversation. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then it's like, hey, so how is about that? I'll always change the conversation
Mm-hmm.
because I just do not want to be involved in it. Um, I don't know about you or anyone listening. Just think about when you're hearing someone. For me, when I hear about somebody else, my energy just drops.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it. I can feel the heaviness. And that's probably because, like you and Claire and I were more in tune with our energies and energetically, and we're feeling the vibrations. Like for me, physically, it just brings me down. So I have to immediately stop it right there. But like, okay, let's stop.
Yeah. Definitely when it's negative talk, when it's negative gossip,
Yeah.
it's and I think people are becoming more aware of negative gossip now, or I'd like to think, definitely in the circles that I'm in, and I'm sure they are in yours, but I'd like to think generally people are
Mhm.
becoming more aware of the impact of negative gossip. But the one that I'm finding hard to break is the positive gossip. The it's the telling of something really great, but it's not my story, and that's the one I'm having, because it's natural. And I've kind of noticed it with my daughter within family dynamics. My daughter will have um something going on in her life, and she shared it with me, and then maybe my mother would say, oh, how's your daughter getting on? And I, I I would I instantly go into, because I'm running that program of sharing and caring, and it's the family, but actually it's not my story. It's not my story to tell. And so it's that's the one I'm struggling with the most. And I don't think many people realize that that is also a form of gossip. That is because it's not, if it's not your story, then it is gossip.
But I think some people would consider like praising, right? Like they did something great and you're gonna share their success.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would see it that way. And
Yeah.
so it's really hard to say like, well, you're kind of still gossiping about somebody else, but because we've been told, well, you're praising that person. And I said, I think praise is when you hear directly from that person and you're going, great, that's amazing. You know, sometimes I tell my, like, just like you with, you know, your daughter, you know, I'd be like, is it all right if I share that with grandma? No. Okay. And it is for me.
That is a brilliant habit to get into, and it's one that it's one that I use. Or sometimes if because I don't, you can sometimes be, I'm going to be honest. I think because it's been so ingrained, and because I come from a family of chronic gossips, it's been a challenge. It has been a challenge. Even the negative stuff has not been a challenge. It's just like, because I've always used the phrase from, I think it was Peter Rabbit actually, if you've not got anything nice to say, don't say it at all. So, and I brought my daughter up with that. But it's that as you said, that praise, that sharing on their life. I found that, and sometimes I have caught myself in mid-sentence and think, oh, this isn't my story. But then of course you've got people that were listening that are just hanging there, and so I will actually interject, this isn't my story, but I'm sure they won't mind. And then as soon as I've finished it, and as soon as I've finished that conversation with that person, I will phone the person who's talked and say, I hope you didn't mind, it was out of my mouth before I caught myself. And so I'm am I troubleshooting in that moment? Yeah, I am troubleshooting. I'm kind of rebalancing the energy, but it's working, and it's helping me to get better at reframing the program so I don't actually do it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because we do get so excited and you're like, oh, it's already, you know, that's up the back. Can I continue? Let me just rectify it. But people don't realize sometimes that, you know, the other person might not want to share those news with everyone because there could be consequences. Like what would happen. A good example will be someone who just found out they're pregnant, and you're excited and ecstatic about that, and then of course you have that one person like, they're pregnant, and the other was like, we didn't want to say anything. So even though you think you're praising and you think you're just overjoyed with this news, it's not for you to tell. It's not your story, like you said. It's gossip. So we need to ask, is it okay if we share this? But also, if you're the ones telling someone about an accomplishment or something that happened to you, something that's great, let that person go like, hey, I want to share something with you that's really exciting and this happened to me. I'm not ready to share with nobody, just you, so please keep it between us, but X, Y, and Z happened. That's a good way to start too, because then you know that, you know, you're sharing this, and then even though you're overjoyous with sharing this news, and your friend or shares those same enjoyment or joy, it stays there. But like you said, you know, sometimes you get over your head like, oh my god, I'm so excited, and we tend to mess it up for the other person. Or a job, like, oh my god, I just got a huge promotion, and they're like, oh, wait a second, we didn't even know they were working there. Or we just got this amazing job offer, and you're like, you guys are moving, so you never know how that's gonna take, and that's still, it seems positive, but it's actually negative.
And I think as well, you saying, I mean, you just brought up a beautiful one, you know, somebody's joy it being pregnant, and we've had that. And I think in families it's much harder as well to kind of break these cycles of gossip, because the older generation, you're not going to change them. They didn't have personal development, they didn't have the tools in their toolbox that we've now got. They didn't think the way that we think now, and that changes with every generation. My daughter doesn't think how I think, and that's all part of the evolution process. So within families where you've got several different generations, it can be really difficult. And my mother would actually say, well, it's because I care. It's because it's family. What is the issue here?
Yeah.
And she really cannot get her head around it because she really doesn't believe she's doing something wrong. But my niece, her granddaughter, and she was expecting her great grandson at the time. No, it was the second child, so it would have been her great granddaughter. It's been born now, but my niece told my mum, because she lived in Spain, but she knew that I was coming back to the UK for my daughter's birthday, and we were all going out for a family meal, and so she wanted it to be a surprise. But of course, my mother told everybody. And then realized, because she'd been asked not to tell anybody, so she told us all, and then she'd actually said, oh, but it's a secret.
Right, the famous word, don't tell anybody I told you.
Yes.
Famous words, don't tell anybody I told you. You know, it's a secret. Or one of my favorite ones, like, he's gonna propose tonight. Act surprise.
Like, oh, I know. And these are the battles that we're battles. It is a battle, actually. It feels like a battle, especially when it's family, and especially when you've got older generations that really cannot see what we're trying to eradicate. Because, and I know for many of the listeners will go, oh, well, that's just family and it's positive gossip, so it's not really a major issue. But that is how it starts, because it moves, it progresses from being in the habit of sharing good news to being in the habit of sharing bad news to being in the habit of repeating untruths. And then we get into the whole, being part of a whole slander chain. And that is where the real heavy, negative, low vibrational energies come into play. And this is it. As we're going through this spiritual awakening, and we've got the second great awakening coming now, this is why it's quite important for people to really get into the habit not to gossip in any shape or form, and to start teaching themselves. You're not going to be able to do it overnight. As I said, we've all been programmed. We've probably been doing it, from the time we were born. We grew up with it. It was normal. We don't even realize, and we don't even consciously consider it to be gossip. But we want to try and eradicate it. We want to eradicate it so that as we are moving forward, we can get rid of these low vibrating energies, because it's in that low vibrating energies that the darkness exists, and the entities that attach themselves that want to pull you down exist. And so we have to keep our own systems clean and clear. And gossip, and it's interesting, gossip it may seem so unimportant in the big scheme of things, but actually it's a very important, because it's an everyday thing, and it's those negative everyday things that need to be worked at. And when we were looking, I know the Toltec, the Four Agreements, actually talks quite heavily about one of the four agreements that we actually make for our spiritual existence is to eradicate our pre-program of gossiping. When you look at the Bible, you've got the Roman text and you've got the Corinthian text, both, and there's many more texts in there of the different modules. I'm not saying that right, so you can tell I'm not a Bible reader. Sorry guys, but the different texts,
verses,
the verses. Thank you. The different verses. The different books. The book of Corinthians, it's books, isn't it? Book of Corinthians. Yeah. I'll get there in a minute. I couldn't think of it. The book of Romans. They clearly say about the dangers of gossip and how we shouldn't be doing it. And I know you've looked up a few as well, haven't you?
Well, I think almost every religion has this huge, not once but over and over repetitive verses and quotes and text lectures on gossip and how bad it is, and they're all very similar. So you have to think about, if every single religion talks ill about gossip, it's for a reason. And as we all know, gossip is probably, like, we have in this common era just made it seem so innocently, like it's no big deal, nobody's really affected, but it has a major impact on yourself and the people around you. And to me, it's one of those things that once you start spreading one tiny, even if you didn't start it, it's just like a wildfire. You're not going to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have repercussions that could potentially severely hurt someone,
Mm-hmm.
hurt you, and you participating in the destruction of that person. So you are part of somebody destruction life, and it goes sometimes even further than that, but we feel we had no part of it. But just gossip is that powerful. It can take someone's life away because it gets to that point, if it gets that dark. And even if we just spread it just a little bit, even if we just bypass it,
Mm-hmm.
and we participate, we are accomplices to that, and we become an accomplice to that person's destruction. And that's why all of these religions, anything spiritual, if you follow, they're so against gossip, because there is a lingering link that will connect you to that person.
Well, it's that phrase, isn't it? Two things dropped in when you were talking there. The phrase, don't throw stones when you live in a glass house. And we all live in a glass house. So why would we throw stones?
Yeah.
Because it will break up your house. Because if you're throwing stones in one direction, somebody's going to be throwing stones at you. And the other thing that came in then when you said even a conversation with your partner.
Yeah.
Even relaying something that you heard with your partner is gossip. And I think we kind of, because it is so ingrained in us,
Yeah,
we don't think of those little aspects. How many people have their partners come in from work and they say, oh, how was your day? And you can, oh yeah, fine. Oh, did you hear? Blah 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 blah. And for all intents and purposes, you're just sharing your day, but
yeah.
actually, no. When you become consciously aware of all forms of gossip, good, bad, indifferent, you will realize, because as it gets told over and over and over, and we know this, and we know this, and we know this from many exercises that the coaches do when they've got a group, and I love doing this. When you do the miming exercise, there's no words even used. And then they go, and there's loads of videos out. There's all over. It's been all over social media, because it is a really good coaching tool to see how communication deteriorates, whether that's verbal or non-verbal, how it deteriorates as it gets passed from one person to another. And that is why gossip is so bad, because what could start off as something, let's take a pregnancy, a surprise pregnancy.
Yeah.
That somebody is absolutely elated about, but they wanted to wait there 12 weeks before lots of people knew. And so it's a surprise. Then it goes to the next person. Of course, it's a secret. Shouldn't have told that. Then it goes to the next person. Oh, it's a secret. Maybe it was an unexpected pregnancy. Then it goes to the next one. And by the time you get to it, it's like, oh, of course they're pregnant, but they didn't want the child.
Yeah, exactly. And then forbid that unfortunately they have the unfortunate event that they lose the child, because of course you shouldn't say something. Then the rumor or the gossip goes, well, they didn't take care of themselves. Oh, they lost it because of this, and it just becomes so much bigger. And of course, you had no idea that this tiny little thing that
bundle of joy.
Well, yeah, this tiny little innocent, just, hi, I'm pregnant, but don't tell anyone. We're gonna wait for the 3 weeks. It's going to come out this big
Mhm.
bomb, you know,
Mhm.
an explosion of she said, he said, whatever. And it just goes like, it trickles down. It reminds me of that little like snowball effect, you know. It just starts to very little, then becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because we don't know. And that's what we're saying, the dangers of gossiping, they're so monumental, but because we can't see them, and because we become so um desensitized.
Desensitized.
Yes, thank you. From the reality of it, that we see it as the norm.
Mhm.
And it's not. And it's not, because every book, every religion, every spiritualist, they talk so much about it. Not one time, not twice. There's several texts, several verses on this topic of how dangerous it is to gossip.
Mhm.
It's there for a reason. Not to mention the fact that you are lowering your vibration, therefore you're gonna be exposed, like you said, to many low vibration demons, whatever you guys want to call it, attached to you. But also the ripple effect of the harm that you are doing and participating in the destruction of somebody else,
Mhm.
because you're actively participating. And that's something that I always tell my daughter and my kids as well. My son, he's still too young, but I was go, when you gossip, you're actively participating in the destruction of that person.
Well, you're
Let that
actually, if we take it to vibrations, what you're actually doing is you are adding to a negative vibration, which you're then passing on to somebody else, who then adds to it and passes it on, and then adds to it. And this is why when we actually look at it as vibrations and energy, this is why every single text, the Quran, the Torah, the Bible, the Buddhism, everything, all different types of spirituality, Native American, Toltec, whatever spirituality you've got there, whatever religion out there, every single one of them says do not gossip. And so, they're saying that for a reason. And when you look at it as an energetic force, you can see what that reason is. Because, as Sylvia said, snowball analogy, what starts as a small snowball ends up as a freaking avalanche. And that is all low vibrating energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it was grey to begin with becomes pitch black by the end of it. It's so dark, it's so heavy, and this is why we want to step away from it. As I said, I'm not going to be so unrealistic to say you have to stop it and you stop it overnight, because it is a program that we've got. It's within our DNA, because humanity has been doing it since the beginning of time. It's actually embedded in our DNA, and part of the light worker's job now is to release it.
Yes.
And that's going to be a process. Like our healing is a process. Releasing some of these aspects from our DNA is going to be a process. And it's, first of all, absolutely stop any negativity and stop other people in their tracks when they try to bring negative gossip to you.
Mm-hmm.
That one's quite easy. It's quite easy to spot, and you can feel quite justified. The trickier ones are the ones where it's family members wanting to share joy, but it's not theirs to share. And to try and close that down, it is tricky, it's challenging, but do it. Really become conscious of it, and really try not to get involved and discourage others from being involved with it. You can't live others' life for them, but you can certainly detach yourself and go, don't tell me. If it's not yours, don't tell me. I mean, I went through a big phase of that, and that helped a lot. I used to, with my family members, is when they started to say something, I go, isn't it your story to tell?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, oh, yeah, well, I'm only sharing. And I go, it's not yours to share. And I would actually, and that has helped. That's not to say that they don't do it, because they'll do it to other members. And then so it all comes back round anyway, but they don't do it directly with me as much anymore. It has helped.
Also, when for me at least, I can speak for myself, is that when I first started my journey in the healing and the energy work, and I was working with energy, when I would sit down in a group and they were gossiping, I noticed that it affected me energetically to work with as well. So if you go to a party and they're gossiping, or there's a friend that you went out for coffee, whatever, and they're gossiping, you bring that energy, that's going to interfere with your work as well. You're not going to be able to heal others. You're not going to get to that level of vibration that you need to ascend or anything like that. So as a healer, you need to protect yourself from that vibration, period. End of story. In that sense. And of course, it does come off a bit sometimes like we don't want to hear it because we don't want part of it, but it's almost protecting yourself because you know that that vibration is going to go low. You can't afford yourself to go lower because you need to help others. So in that sense, as a healer, we should not be gossiping. We should not be hearing. We should not be accepting it. Like you said, you need to stop. And now I do it too. To everyone, it's kind of like when I start to hear that, well, did you, I'm like, wait a second, like, were you there? How does this affect me? How am I involved in this? Did you see it? And if those questions are not answered, I don't want to hear it. Don't even start.
Yeah.
And so you sometimes do have to be that way in order to stop them. But another way also to do is like just tell people, it's like, you listen, I just rather be honest with you, and if unless it's something that I absolutely need to know because it affects me, don't tell me. Okay, because it ends with me. And if you happen to hear it by accident, because it does happen, it has happened to me many times, I go, it ends with me, because nothing's gonna come out of this mouth, and I'm gonna do a meditation and a cleanse to get rid of it and send it to you. That's all we can do for that.
That is, I mean, that it ends with me. It's lovely. It's interesting actually. Again, going back to family members, when it ends with you, and then everybody's really shocked. Well, didn't you tell so and so? Well, no, it's not mine to tell.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually had that. Like, you knew, right? You didn't tell her? No. No, I'm sorry.
It's not mine to tell.
Why would she? Doesn't need. There's absolutely. I would sometimes say like, there's absolutely no reason for that person to know.
Yeah.
There's none, like whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so it's gotten to the point where now sometimes some of my friends like, well, I was gonna. How's your day? Because they're learning not to share.
And remember, it's a lot of the gossip occurs because of the egoic state of curiosity. And it's teaching. It's because I'm not an agreeer of killing the ego. I mean, we've had that discussion before. It's about taming the ego, and the ego, curiosity. Curiosity. We all will get sparked by curiosity.
Yes.
Let's just be a little bit more mindful about where that curiosity is wanting to take us and why it's wanting to take us there. Because there are energies and forces that would love for us to drop our frequencies, and so curiosity and send us down rabbit holes that we really don't need to go down is a great way of getting you to drop your vibrations. And then obviously when you drop your vibrations, people and things can attach themselves to your energetic field because you've come down to a level that they can reach. So let's keep this in mind. It is part of your energetic cleansing routine that you need to start becoming really, really consciously aware of the gossip that is around you and the gossip that is in you, because I don't believe there's even a guru on this planet that their curiosity still doesn't get
hurt. Absolutely. And sometimes even by accident, I was, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, what, sometimes accidentally we say things. Like, for instance, I remember something happened at my daughter's high school, and I was so shocked by it that at the moment I heard it, somebody was with me and I just shared it. And then they're like, oh my God. And so I was just like, oh my goodness. Okay, I just started something, this ripple effect. Let's see where it goes. and it went really far. So I was just like, I've made sure it's like, yeah, I'm not too sure about the details. I'm still getting the information. If you're concerned for anyone, please talk to the school directly. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just, so I caught myself. So sometimes accidentally we share. But then there's the part where we also share because we need to vent. We need to, we need to know the distinction of, are you saying it because you want to start a conversation, a juicy conversation, or you want to start a gossip? I mean, we know when we're gossiping. We know when
Yeah.
something's like, okay, we want to bring dramatic, we want to be liked, we want to be included, so we're going to share something that doesn't belong to us versus something that we're venting about,
Yeah.
And so there's a huge difference, and I think we're very intelligent and smart enough to know what's the difference between those two. I mean,
Yeah.
they're as black and white as they can be, venting and gossiping.
And that takes us back to, calling in and having a few people that are your absolute soulmates that you have complete confidence with, that you can vent, and it stops with them.
Yeah.
It stops with them. You have sufficient trust in that person that you can vent, you can do what you need to get it out of your energetic system, and it stops with them. They just stand there, they don't take it in, they don't absorb it, they just hold space and transmute it whilst you're doing that. And so it there's a lot in there. People think of gossip as a silly nonsensical, but actually on the spiritual pathway, it's massive.
Yeah.
So don't underestimate. What we want to get across in this video is, don't underestimate the importance of being consciously aware of and mindful of your participation or being surrounded by gossip.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's bye-bye from me.
And me. And as always, please share, like, and leave us in your comments what's your favorite quote about gossiping. If you want to share some, we'd love to hear from you. And please share and like. The more likes, the more content we can bring you. Till next time.
Bye-bye.